Sri Ramana Paravidyopanishad, the supreme science of the self as taught by Sri Ramana. In the heart there dwells the reality that is pure consciousness, the real self. To be in the heart with the mind quiescent is knowledge, awareness of it, and also the state of deliverance. The state of deliverance is just the mind-free state in which the real self, the dweller in the heart, is realized as such. The real self is not the dutiful little apparent self called the soul. What then is it? The answer follows. That pure consciousness, which is the real self, shining in the heart, ever the same, without change, and the basic substratum, named Brahman, of the whole universe, are both one and the same. That is the meaning intended to be conveyed by the sacred texts of the Upanishads, which say that the Supreme Being itself entered the body as the soul, while also giving a popular account of what is known as creation. Really, there was no creation except that which will be presently explained. The world appearance is ignorantly superimposed by the mind upon that substratum, which is the truth of the self. It, the world appearance, conceals that reality and shines as if it is real, so long as the ignorance persists. Ignorance and mind are inseparable. Where there is mind, there alone is ignorance. Where there is no mind, there is no ignorance, since in the mind-free state, the real self is not concealed. This explains why the real self is not known to men in general. An analogy is next given to help to understand the above statement. Just as in a dim light, the snake concealing the real rope is taken as real in its own sight, so the world, concealing the self, appears as real in its own sight. This is the state of ignorance. The notion of the self that develops because of this basic ignorance is described next. Because of ignorance, the self is believed to be limited to the body. In that state, it enjoys and suffers, is bound by bonds of desire of the world, and appears to be ignorant and distinct from the Supreme Being. Really, the self is identical with it, not other. This mistaken view of one's own self is the starting point of all the evil, known as samsara, which means the necessity of being born and dying in an endless cycle. But all this unreal, as explained in the very first verse of Ekatma Panchakam, the 5 verses of the One Self, where it is said that mistaking the body for the self, the cycle of births and deaths, self-realization, and becoming the self are all a dream, like a world tour in a dream. Hence, this world wandering of the self is just a myth, but this can be verified only in the mind-free state. Apart from the mind, there is no ignorance. The mind itself is ignorance, which is bondage to life in the world. The latter half of the verse is a quotation from Vivek Chudamani of Sri Shankaracharya. The analogy of the rope snake is here repeated to explain this wrong notion of the self. As one seeing the false snake fails to see the real rope, so seeing the world in which are included the personal God and the individual soul, he does not see the real self as it really is, that is, as the supreme reality, Brahman. How long will this effect of ignorance continue? The self will remain concealed in this way as long as the world is taken to be real. It will cease to be so taken when the mind is once and for all extinguished. Hence, one must strive towards extinguishing the mind. The world appearance being the obstacle to right awareness of the self, and the mind being the cause of the world appearance. The cure of this evil is the attainment of the mind-free state, which is done by the quest.